Good morning and welcome to DC Today. I'm Del Walters. Anquinette Crosby will join us shortly. Coronavirus is killing us, but that's not all. So is what we eat. What we eat and how we live is feeding a pandemic. More on that straight ahead, but first, the latest. Joining us now from Los Angeles is Dr. Columbus Batiste. And Dr. Batiste, I guess the basic question is, we could save a lot of lives as African Americans during this COVID pandemic if we simply learn to eat better.
That's absolutely correct. Thank you for having me. It's nice to join you this morning. And you said it. That's one of the key fundamental aspects of changing our lives is through the food that we eat.
Now, in terms of the food that we eat, what are we eating now that we shouldn't be eating? What should we be eating?
Well, I think the real question is, what are we eating for our health on a day in and day out basis? And so when we look at food, oftentimes there's a stigma that's attached to it. Food is bad, food is good. We hear, eat this, don't eat that. But one thing that has been consistent throughout the eons of time is the fact that fruits and vegetables and whole grains, beans, legumes, nuts, and seeds, these things are the things that are the foundations and pillars of health. And so this goes back into globally, around the world, we know that these are the key important ingredients towards health.
Dr. Baptiste, during a recent sojourn to Africa, I found myself eating a lot of what you're talking about. And the first thing that I wanted to do was either to reach for the hot sauce or the salt and pepper shaker. There seems to be a common myth in Black America that the foods that we eat here are soul food, and yet when we go to Africa, it doesn't taste the same.
You know what? I think you must have been inside my brain because that's one of the key things. Many of us think that our culture is tied to this thing we characterize as soul food, but that's really not our heritage. You know, if you really look at the eons of time, our heritage originated in Western Africa, as you just brought up, and where you had plentiful amounts of greens and vegetables and all these things, and you had sparing amounts of meat that were there. You had some tribes that didn't partake of any meat whatsoever. But as this sojourn happened from Africa, you know, through the diaspora, and all of a sudden we ended up inside of America, all of a sudden now we were given the food that was the refuse that was thrown out, and we began out of our resiliency to craft a diet that sustained us to some degree, but harmed us in another. And so as you look at this migration out of slavery into the Great Migration to the major cities, and then you look, we became the early adopters of what is now known as fast food, the standard American diet. And so now we were crafted and shaped in these crucibles called urban cities, that all around it, all amidst it, are all fast foods littered on every single corner, that now we have a brand recognition. And we feel that this is indeed what we feel this is our culture. This is who we are, but who we are originates way back prior to what we think.
I used to own a barbecue restaurant in addition to being a journalist. But one of the things that I used to tell people was that barbecue started out as spare ribs. And spare ribs were the leftover part of the hog that they couldn't do anything with, which is why our ancestors had to smoke them as long as they did, just trying to get the little meat that was left on the bone tender. But all of that meat was also fatty. And the one thing I can tell you about owning a barbecue restaurant is if you want to lose weight, don't do that. So how do we break ourselves from this cycle?
Yeah. I think one of the things to break it from the cycle is that we don't focus on what we are not going to eat. And we take a negative connotation because all of a sudden, when we say we're not going to have the spare ribs, we're not going to have the chicken, all of a sudden, guess what we're craving? We want just what we say we're not going to have. So everyone's different, everyone's an individual, but in general, I always advise people, let's add to your plate. Let's add in a salad, not ranch soup with a few pieces of green leafy lettuce there, but let's have a robust salad before we eat our food. Let's add in the vegetables and make our meat the side. Eat those things first, then go ahead. I remember telling this to one individual, and I said, listen, I want you to eat these things before you eat whatever it is that you want to. And she said, Doc, if I eat all that stuff, I'm gonna get full. I'm not gonna want to eat the other stuff. I said, there you go.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about moving forward with COVID-19 and how we can make changes now that will affect our lives further down the road, and how sometimes even a dark cloud has a silver lining. So Dr. Batiste, stay with us.